Many people have questions about hypnosis. What is it? How does it work? And why does it work? Hypnosis itself is merely a concentrated, relaxed state of mind. It's close to the same state of mind we're in when we're daydreaming or just about to fall asleep. During this state of mind, a door can be opened between two parts of our brain, the highly evolved neocortex and our limbic brain. The neocortex is the area of the brain that makes us human. This is where we reason and make decisions. Meanwhile, the limbic brain acts as a storehouse for emotional memories. According to many neuroscientists, our decision-making process has a powerful emotional component. When any stimulus enters the brain tries to understand it based on previous experiences. All through our lives, events and emotions create an imprint on the brain, a pattern that makes it hard for the logical part of our brain to get rid of. This pattern is like a shortcut activated every time we face a similar situation. For example, if you once had a traumatic incident with a snake, your brain might harbor a set of these pathways that associate that snake with all snakes, making you fear them. Hypnosis activates the limbic brain, where we store and process emotional memory, often uncovering long-forgotten memories. This activation enables the conscious part of our present brain to temporarily override previously entranced patterns, allowing you to emerge with a new perspective on past experiences and deeply rooted patterns of behavior. Snakes, for example, will no longer be scary once these new connections are created and memories reevaluated. Now take a deep breath.
Oh, hey there. Yeah, you. I'm sure you're hip to the gnosis. And we brought another brother who knows this in case you don't. And that's okay. If you didn't catch our latest discussion with Oksana talking about hypnotherapy and the massive amount of underestimated benefits from it, we had to have Brendan on to kind of follow up on some of these things because there were a lot of aspects revealed that were quite profound and a little bit surprising and didn't really catch us off guard. But there's things that tie into shadow work and just like the overall great work in oneself and having proper success, which is something you touched upon quite a bit in your podcast with Chris Jansen in recent times. And yeah, Leslie, what's good over at End Evil Podcasts?
I'm in the Live Thrive studio.
That, yeah.
Welcome, everybody. And I'm really, really glad to have Brendan Byrne here with us today. I met Brendan through kind of a membership in Benny Will's Sovereign Secrets and had the opportunity to experience a individual session with Brendan around establishing a hypnotic affirmation, and found that to be powerful and helpful. We all have so many goals we generally have goals in life or things that we have to do, and things get in the way. And a lot of times the things that get in our way is in our own head or in our own mind and body. And so this process of accessing the subconscious and directing yourself with a focus that is really powerful. So I'm really excited to have Brendan share about his approach to hypnosis and what he's offering to the community. So welcome, Brendan.
Thank you guys so much. I'm very grateful to be here and to be discussing this with y'all. And Benny Will's group, Sovereign Secrets, it's a really powerful group of folks there that are all doing the work and helping others achieve new heights. And so this is another aspect of it. And I'm grateful to be sharing my experience in my journey as well and how I can help other people. It's really cool.
Awesome. That's great, Brendan. Yes. So where shall we begin?
I guess, where you kind of came about, delving into the aspects of hypnotherapy before you even, became one of a practitioner yourself and that kind of stuff.
Yes. Well, I first started learning about this tool from Mark Passio's Arc Drive. So Mark Passio, this was back when he was doing ARC 1.0. He had a great deal of content from the NLP specialist, which is neuro linguistic programming specialist of Richard Bandler. And so he is an interesting character. And, I have different perspective on him now with some of the things that he said. But at the same time, it was so instrumental in learning the power of hypnosis and the power of hypnotherapy in order to create meaningful changes to our subconscious mind according to our conscious mind's will. And so that is kind of my touchstone where I started learning about that. And from there, I just started collecting books and information on things. I would just go to Library Genesis and read all the books I could on hypnosis through just free online PDF, or not free, but online PDFs. And it's been a wonderful journey to be able to kind of distill all these various sources down to my own practice that I'm rightfully and willfully calling something that I've developed on my own, right? This is something of course, nothing is created in a vacuum. I'm inspired by others, definitely, assuredly, but I am not afraid of saying that, oh, this is my method that I've developed and I want to bring it to other people. And that's kind of my goal right now, is to help others level up themselves in the best way possible, in the most effective way possible. And so that's kind of where this started from. And I was using hypnosis to deal with certain aspects of my own challenges of my own personality. And that's kind of where I was able to understand the power of this tool and the way that we can use it. And, full disclosure, I was dealing with pornography addiction. And that's what it was what kind of got me down this road of using hypnosis to create meaningful changes. And I wanted to escape that trap. And so that's kind of what inspired me a lot to kind of level up. And it's been a really beautiful journey, and I'm grateful to be on it. So yeah. And
Yeah. Thanks, Brendan. It's so powerful. Really, I think one of the more powerful ways of learning is through our own experience of something, and
yeah.
learning mastery through applying a therapeutic method to ourselves or principles in our own life. So yeah, thank you for sharing that journey.
Full
You,
holds barred.
yeah, it's courageous. And in this, you mentioned NLP. So what is the connection between NLP and hypnosis?
Very good question. Well, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, is an accumulation of various methods, and hypnosis is one of the methods that NLP uses to create meaningful changes. And so NLP is not just one thing, it's everything that works, as Richard Bandler describes it. And it's really a beautiful art, and there's a lot of different nuances and changes that go into that. Some things you can use that are considered NLP that don't even require a hypnotic state. Some things with NLP you can use just by journaling, right? Or writing things down in your own. There's a lot there that you can unpack. And to be clear, I'm not an NLP expert. I haven't been formally trained in NLP or even hypnosis for that matter. I'm self-trained all the way. Like I just went for it, and it's working out wonderfully. And I'm really grateful to be assisting others in the meaningful ways that I have been. And so that is really a beautiful thing, and engaging with others on that level.
Yeah. What are, in general, some of the aspects in people's lives that you've been able to have them benefit from through the facility of your hypnotherapy sessions?
Excellent question. I think one of my biggest wins has been with helping people with addiction. I helped one lady get off cocaine, actually, and she was very grateful for the work that we did together. And I can't take full credit for that for sure, because I think that definitely everyone gets to the point where they're ready to make that change. And maybe the process that I used with her, of the hypnotic process that I used with her, just finally flipped that switch so that she could step into that higher vision of herself. Because definitely she struggled with it for a long time, and it was something that she's been wanting to change and something she's thought about. But sometimes we just need that little extra nudge, right? And so that was a big win for sure. of course, the self change as well, you know, getting rid of other addictions, as I previously mentioned. That's huge. Helping people attain greater levels of focus and determination. And also, most notably, though, is the people I've been working with recently, some of the folks, to help them engage with the great work, to be doing work for other people, to help them step into the highest vision and assisting them to actually, you know, engage on the level they would like to engage. So one woman I worked with recently, her goal was to start teaching natural law, and that was, she had in her mind the building this conception of like, how can she start meaningfully teach natural law. And so we did a session that, you know, reinforced this idea for her that she is a teacher and that she's bringing it to other people. And that was really successful. Marcella, she's in the One Great OGWW Telegram. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool
And
woman.
then
Sure.
another
Great.
gentleman that I met after I did Chris's podcast, he reached out to me, and his goal was to start doing man on the street style interviews at his local kava bar regarding natural law and regarding these principles, you know. And so I'm always grateful to help people engage and integrate all these various thought forms in order to really be doing the great work. And that's something I want to engage with more. And to that note, though, like, that's something I'm doing. I want to volunteer for, right? I want to help people in the best way possible so that they can actually step into their highest vision for themselves, especially when teaching and when dealing with natural law and with helping others in accordance with natural law. That is what I find really engaging and really what my true goal is with hypnosis at this point, with what I'm working with. So yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And also, we got to mention as well, I'm sorry it got skipped in the introduction, but you got that good old natural law discussion forum going
Oh yeah.
on Telegram, right? And you're
That's
really
been
trying to
going
engage
for
more
many
discussion.
years.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hmm. And
And I
you
do.
are also selling books. You're slanging them things, man. End of All Evil. Watch out, folks. You should read
Yeah.
this book by Jeremy Locke. Real talk, right?
And that was I called in some time ago about the End of All Evil, about reprinting it. And I called into Mark Passio's live show, and Mark Passio told me that, like, oh yeah, that's no transgression to do this. Just don't be lying to people about it. You know, as long as I'm not telling people these are original copies and that, you know, they're gonna, because people were selling that for insane amounts. Like, they were selling it for $2,000 a book, $400 a book, depending on which place you were going to, right? And so I was just like, more books need to be in existence of this. More copies need to be getting out there at the very least, you know? And so I'm been shipping them all across America. I ship them to Chris Jansen. It's been really, really a blessed thing to be able to share this.
Yeah, he
And I've
gifted
been
me with
selling.
one of your books, Chris. Thanks,
Oh
brother.
my god, that printing. Yeah, I didn't write the book. It's not my book. Okay. But, and perhaps, you know, that's something I've kind of wrestled with when selling this book that I didn't write, is the actual pricing, right? And it's like, well, like, how low should I put this? And I've been selling to people in the community, and anyone who reaches out to me through this podcast, I'm going to give them for the cost to print, or not close to it, right? I'm selling it for $5.60 a copy to anyone who's in the community and who's actually doing the work. And but I'm also selling them on Amazon for $30 a pop. And I mean, I think they're definitely worth that much, but if you're buying multiple copies in order to disseminate this knowledge, then I'm all for giving it as cheap as possible, or giving away so many copies. I've been giving away a ton of them. So I'm grateful to be able to share it in that way, and while still maintaining the value of the work itself, right? Because it needs to be, it's not something that can be just thrown away, or should. I want to encourage more people to do this printing on their own and to get this book out there on their own as well. And if that requires them to see, you know, the monetary aspect of it and to benefit on that level, I'm okay with that. That's okay in my mind. So
Yeah, great. Can you just share a little bit more about the book End of All Evil and why this was so inspiring and instrumental for your own,
yes,
work and your growth? Yeah.
The End of All Evil is such a powerful text for me and for everyone who reads it too, you know. I think my journey with it, or what's so important to about it for me, is to recognize my own value, to recognize individual value, and that is like the true aspect of it that is most important, to let people know that they do have power, they do have value, and that their principles matter. Most importantly, you know, principles guide all our actions and everything we do, and if we maintain our principles, that's the most crucial aspect of living a good and happy life, right? Happy being described in the terms of you know, how James Corbett talks about happiness. Happiness is not the same thing as joy. It's not saying that, like, oh, I'm just going to be living in this state of bliss, I'm going to be enjoying everything I'm doing. No, happiness is living with principles, living truly to your deepest intentions. So I think that's a powerful statement there, and that, you know, that all kind of jives for me together.
Yeah, it's that living in alignment within oneself and outwardly
Yes,
in one's
in
action.
alignment. There we go.
Yes, and I think that the hypnosis is a tool to help bring more alignment to oneself,
So
right?
true. So
Yeah.
true. But like any tool, right? Every sword has two blades. Two you can use it for multiple things. You can use it to cut your dinner into pieces. You can use it to, no, not a sword, but a knife. You can use it to attack another. There you go, scissors. There we go. So hypnosis is one of those tools that has been much maligned, and there's a lot of baggage that people like to attach to it, and there's a lot of ideas that people attach to it as well. But you know, it's like that joke, the two fish swimming along, and then the older fish is swimming past them, and the older fish says to the two younger fish, and he says, "Nice water today, boys, eh?" And the one younger fish looks at the other younger fish, he says, "What the heck is the water?" Because we're steeped in hypnosis constantly every day without even recognizing its influence, and that we're within this structure of building these thought forms that are not necessarily coming from us. But my idea then is to be able to use hypnosis to, in a mindful way, in a conscious way, so we can build the thought forms and build the structures that we want for ourselves, that we actually desire in our lives, and that assist us in whatever goals we have.
Yeah, totally. And you know, you're alluding towards, you know, all the programming, mind control, all these thoughts that are invading our mental space that are not ours originally. Yet, something that was really intriguing, which Oksana brought up in our last show in regards to hypnotherapy, because
Mhm.
what she goes in with in her book and with her clients, what sometimes is the aspects of the residual or lingering self-talk from childhood. And when we're
Mm.
children, what she said is, you know, like some of that self-talk and what we're our worldview is not all that ripe or mature or correct and all this stuff, but it still is there, residing within the unconscious subconscious mind field. So how are people able to kind of flip the script on that, in a sense, or just like address it, say, oh yeah, I remember you, my younger self, how you doing? Oh, you were thinking about that? Oh shit, man, that's what was holding me back, you know, with this one thing all this time. Holy shit, you know, like because she's been helping women regain the ability to be pregnant, because there was some
Oh,
you
wow.
know, inner child talk all
Yeah.
throughout her body, you know, saying like, yeah, no, like you know, having kids is not going to be good for you, or whatever kind of negative talk that was, right? They were able to flip the script. So I'm really interested as to, because we didn't really get it in with her all that much, but you know, eventually in this chat, and you can respond to what I said before, first and foremost. But I want you to kind of go over how you would, you know, speak with your going on a session with your client or patient, whatever you want to call them.
Yes.
Just like the step-by-step type of stuff, because
Yeah.
my girlfriend does hypnotherapy and she goes on the journey with them, and so it's really interesting, and it can take a lot out of her. Just there's a lot of things going on with there. It's really intriguing, so yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And when it comes to self-talk, I think that that's something that I'm not without struggling myself nowadays even, I'm not on some sort of cloud above others. I'm just doing the best I can. And so it is a process of working through it, though, of choosing. First and foremost, we have to choose, and hypnosis is our choice, right? That's what I always describe to people. It's not something that someone does to you, it's something that you do with others, or it's something you do to yourself, right? Self hypnosis being one of the most valid and valuable methods of using hypnotic thoughts, of using hypnotic patterns. And so when I'm working with clients, though, I use a specific form of hypnosis, and this is the hypnosis that I've kind of honed myself, and I call it self-determined hypnosis, because what kind of sets it apart from other traditional hypnotherapies or hypnosis practices is that the only suggestions and the only words that we use throughout the entire process are specifically decided upon by the client. So this is completely like honing in on some of the hesitations and some of the fears and kind of negating them before even anyone gets a chance to raise any concerns, because I'm only using their words. Like my process is like this. First, we conceive of a vision, or a thought or a goal, right? And we take that goal and we make it as real as possible, as many details as we can put to it as we possibly can, to make it as real in our minds as we could, right? And then we take that vision and we distill that down to a single sentence, worded positively in the present tense and with emotionally triggering words. And so that single sentence is the self-suggestion that we use through the process, right? Because that makes sure that there's no outside influences, there's no interpretations on me. I'm not telling people how to think. This is their words. This is what we've decided upon to use very specifically and very clearly. I'm not putting my own spin on it. I'm not putting my own interpretation on it. This is what you wanted. This is it. And that's the only suggestion that I use when I'm working with clients. And so from there, though, the actual process itself, what it looks like is, first we do an environment check, right? Make sure that there's nothing that's going to be disturbing you, nothing that's going to be holding you back from allowing yourself to go into a really deep state of relaxation. Because that's what hypnosis is mostly, is a state of advanced relaxation. And in this relaxation, we have a very direct line of communication with our subconscious. So that way we can start bringing into reality, we can program ourselves exactly with what we want to do. And so environment check first, make sure that everything is good. And then I like to do something which is a breathing technique. This is you probably already know it, fourfold breath or box breathing. And so very simply done, we just inhale slowly over the count of 4, hold that inhale for the count of 4, exhale slowly over the count of 4, and then hold that exhale for the count of 4. And we do that 4 times. And this is before we even begin the hypnotic process itself. This is just a relaxation technique that allows your body and mind to have a deeper sense of communications that will allow you to relax that much better. So that's kind of the first step that I take when we're actually going through the process. After that, then we do something called a fractionation induction. And so that's the hypnotic induction itself. And fractionation induction is just the idea of blinking and counting. And so the idea behind it is that every time you open your eyes, you're kind of coming out of hypnosis a little bit. And then when you close your eyes again, all the way down, you go deeper than you were previously. And so I count them up, right? For every odd number, we close our eyes all the way down and then imagine a wave of relaxation, because the imagination is the most important aspect to a hypnotic process. So you close your eyes and you imagine a wave of relaxation moving from the top of your head down your body and out your toes. For every even number, we slowly open those eyes again, feeling the heaviness, feeling the weight of your eyelids with each number as we count forward. And then once again, odd, close all the way down, another wave of relaxation. And we get like this just to kind of exhaust the eyelids a little bit. So that way they get even more tired. And then from the fractionation induction, from that technique of actually inducing, then we go to an Ericksonian approach, which is the idea of choosing to relax parts of your body in as we move down the body. So we start with the eyelids, and then we allow our eyelids to relax fully. And then that relaxation allow it to spread up to our foreheads, and as we choose to let all the muscles go loose in our foreheads, and then as we choose to let all the muscles in our cheeks, our jaw, our neck, we just go down very slowly, progressively. And it's a little bit slower of a technique than some hypnotists like to use. Some people will do a quick jolt, but that's a different technique entirely. So the Ericksonian approach is just to relax the body all the way down purposefully with consciously. And then after that, we just use a very simple technique. And this is a technique I learned from Dick Sutphin of just imagine walking downstairs. And it's not just from Dick Sutphin, but his specific tonality and his way of bringing about this imagination, this imagined state of walking downstairs is a really beautiful one. And so he's a powerful hypnotist for sure. But just walking downstairs in your mind's eye, imagining yourself going down, 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 10, down, down, down. Okay, but you get it, right?
I'm already feeling it a little.
A little bit slower than that is generally the best technique. Yeah, you can, and it's your choice. You can feel it if you'd like to feel it, and there's nothing really holding you back. And from there, we go down, and at the bottom of the stairs, we reach a door, and your name is on the door. And so it's your door. It's meant for you to use because your name's on it. So I ask them to imagine opening the door, stepping inside, and for now, closing the door behind us. And from this place, they have a much deeper ability to influence their subconscious mind to create the meaningful changes they want to see in their lives. Leslie, you went through this process. You know that exactly what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
Yes. Yeah, I have the various thoughts coming through my mind as you're talking. And one is it's dawning on me, a lot of people are afraid to relax in this way, that it
Yeah,
can feel, and many people go through their days without experiencing this type of relaxation and maybe anxious in the process. And yet, when you allow yourself to do so, it's a very pleasant experience. And you're
so
still very conscious. It's not like you're unconscious at all, but there is some power to your self-talk and your intention when you're in that state. So I wonder if you could talk about some of the fears that you've noticed people have about doing this process. Let's just start there.
yes, very good. And I always talk about three of the main fears that come up with individuals when I start working with a client, right? And so the three fears are, the first fear is, I sometimes call it the office space myth. And depends on how old the person that is that I'm working with. And that's the idea of that someone can be stuck in a hypnotic state. This idea that someone can be walking around for weeks at a time without even really recognizing it, that they're in hypnosis, which is not true. In a state of hypnosis, you cannot get stuck. Just like you cannot get stuck in sleep, right? You never worry about not waking up from sleep when you go to bed. And just like that, just like hypnosis, you shouldn't worry about hypnosis, because you know what? You're going to come out of it. It's your choice to either, I mean, potentially you could fall asleep if you're really that relaxed, but that's not a concern per se though. So that's the first one. The second one is the brainwashing myth. This idea that, you're going to be doing things you wouldn't normally be doing in a state of hypnosis. And that is not true. In a state of hypnosis, your morals do not change. What's right is still right, and what's wrong is still wrong. And if I, as a hypnotist, was to give you a suggestion for something that you know to be morally wrong, you would either ignore it or wake up out of hypnosis completely. That's how it goes.
Damn. So it's not like this, there's certain movies that give people this weird idea, like the movie Get Out.
Oh my gosh.
And they're not, walking down the stairs. They're like slowly like slipping down this, weird vortex type of thing. So that seems quite manipulative. And obviously, you've seen that movie, right?
I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard plenty of people reference it.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. And she just like stirs her spoon around her teacup, and that triggers him to just all of a sudden be in this paralyzed hypnotic state or whatever.
Okay.
I don't think it always goes down like that, but yeah. So, but at the same time, folks that are not privy to what hypnotherapy is really all about, they're gonna be really hesitant or scared, fearful, all these things, right? So yeah.
So true. Yes, fully. And that's not to say that what happens, the idea of someone stirring a spoon is impossible. I think that it very much is possible. You can be given these triggers which do unlock hypnotic patterns for you, and that can carry out, but it does require your consent. It requires you to actually will that, and to be willing to accept that suggestion into your subconscious. If you're unwilling to accept that suggestion as a possibility, it can't happen. If you don't want to be hypnotized, you cannot be hypnotized. It just requires you to decide so. And I think one of the fears, though, that's kind of like that goes along with the stage hypnosis stuff, right? You see someone acting silly on the stage in front of a group of people, and it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, I mean, the people who don't want to do that, they're already off the stage before that even begins. Like, they weeded them out beforehand. And while it is a true hypnotic experience, those people who do want to be doing that stuff, they are there because that's their choice. They can choose not to do it if they want. But if they don't do it, then the hypnotist would ask them to leave the stage, right? So they're getting something out of it. They're fulfilling a personal need subconsciously or consciously in order to have that experience. And it's an enjoyable one, even being silly on stage, even being silly with a hypnotic stance, like, acting like an animal or doing whatever, you get something out of it. It can be fun because it also removes that responsibility of that choice. It's like, oh, I was being silly. It's like, oh, it's not me. It's the hypnotist. He made me do these things, which is, it's like, okay, well, you wanted to go along with it. You could stop at any time you want, but that's one of the myths and the fears that I work with. And then the third myth is going to be the forgetfulness myth, the idea that you're not going to remember anything that happens in a hypnotic state, which is not true. You'll probably remember a lot better than anyone else in this situation, but if you are of the mind that you don't want to remember, you don't have to remember. Like, you can put yourself in a state and be given a suggestion, if you accept it, that you're not going to remember what's happening, or you're not going to actively remember. And so it's a lot less frightful. It's a lot less intimidating when you kind of break down some of these myths for folks, because there's so much that's just put and front loaded onto hypnosis that people see it as this method of control where they lose all ability to create what they want for themselves, to do what they want, and now they're somehow under the control of this third party, and it's not true.
Yeah, I think it's good that you eliminate that myth, right? And
Yes.
make it clear for people that if a person does sort of blame the hypnotist, it's really an excuse for a choice they're making, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I think so, and maybe part of the fear is that radical responsibility for oneself,
Mm.
and I think there's two steps. We have developed limiting beliefs that in our childhood, throughout our life experiences, that often are unconscious, that we're not aware of. And people are starting to, look at themselves. Doing part of the great work is the self-work, and recognizing what are the unconscious scripts that have been running your life, identifying them. But just having that insight isn't necessarily enough, right? There's another step. And I think this is where your process and in your work really is powerful. It's like, okay, if you've sort of identified that you have a hang up and an insecurity, a sense of powerlessness in life, and you're staying stuck in that soup that you've created and not sure how to get out, this shift to the positive affirmation in deepening it into your core sense of identity is really an important part, a next step. So
Hugely.
yeah, just share a bit about how you might help people to choose a target and maybe help to release limiting beliefs and create a new script or mental framework around their identity.
Yes, definitely. And I think one of the things that is important when choosing a goal or choosing a vision is to deal with some of the underlying issues first, right? Because if someone wants to, someone has an stated goal of losing a lot of weight or something, then sometimes they actually don't. Sometimes there's a subconscious block there where they're getting something from, carrying all the extra weight or whatever it is that they want to deal with. If there is a subconscious benefit to anything that they're stating that they want to adhere to, or that they wish to, kind of make better for themselves, then you have to kind of deal with that subconscious block first. You have to help them realize and work through that before you actually are able to address the root issue. Because you can give yourself a suggestion, but if you are coming at it from a way that's what am I saying? So I'm saying that if someone has an idea that, like, they want to lose weight, but they get benefits from carrying the weight, then you know what? Your subconscious is still functioning on that level, and you have to address that limiting belief before you can actually go and change the behavior itself. It's not as effective. The hypnosis is only as effective as your subconscious is allowing it to be. You can't have two contrasting beliefs at the same time that are butting heads and trying to gain control of your actions in order to have a meaningful change, right? Then you're just fighting yourself every step of the way.
Wow.
And
So this info.
Go ahead, Derek. Just agreeing.
For sure. Yeah. Cheers. And trying to get confirmation as well. Like you're talking about this inner infighting going on between the conscious and subconscious mind stuff going on, or what's up?
or even just two subconscious beliefs, right?
Oh yeah.
Because maybe someone is getting a benefit from some action that they are not even willing to acknowledge in their conscious mind. It could just be happening on the subconscious level, right? Maybe someone is choosing to carry weight because of old patterns, and these old patterns need to be addressed first before you can really have that meaningful change be occurring for them, right? What are they getting from it? What is the cost benefit of analysis, so to speak, of the carrying this extra weight or carrying whatever? Because, and it's not an uncommon thing to see in hypnotists even as well, because I think they're maybe just a little bit more conscious of the benefits that they get from various aspects of their personality.
Yeah, that's so true, Brendan. I'm glad you brought that up because there are secondary gains to a lot of our addictions or
Mm-hmm.
the habits that we have that we don't like, and we're like, oh,
Yes.
I want to stop doing this, or I want to change this pattern that I have, but there's something reinforcing about those behaviors. There's and the parts work, when we think of, like, right now, internal family systems as a therapeutic modality is really highlighting this truth that has been known for eons, that we have compartmentalized personalities. Really, we are compartmentalized internally, and we have all these parts that adapt and lead the show, right? And that are triggered or motivated to protect and maybe keep us from feeling pain. And so, yes, there is some work to do in building awareness of those contradictory, those polarized parts within us and the secondary gains of the habits that we want to stop, right?
Yes, fully. One head, many hats.
Yes. And so how can your work maybe assist people in that process of recognizing those inner contradictions?
That's an excellent question, Leslie. And to be completely honest, I think that realizing and recognizing those internal contradictions is not what I'm doing with clients. That's not what I'm attempting to do. I'm not digging into people's psyche. I'm not digging into their past. I'm not trying to tell them what their problems are. I'm just trying to distill their highest vision, their highest goal into something more actionable, something more real, in order to pull it out of them so they can become whoever they imagine. Now, if they imagine themselves wanting something else, good for them. I'm not gonna tell people what they should be doing. That's not my interest. But I just want to assist them with the realization of the visions that they have for themselves. And maybe this is something that I can be putting a little more effort into, a little more understanding into. Maybe this is a growth subject for myself as well, is to be helping people recognize, oh, like that. Are you sure about that? Are you sure that's what you really want? But
Yeah, I think that there's a place. Yeah, I think it's really good that you're defining what your particular offering is in this phase of becoming,
yes.
our best self, right? And that what you're identifying is that there may be some work to do in
Hmm.
addition to this building of this positive vision. And there may be, and even starting to work on this process, say with you, could then bring to light some of the ways that they're creating barriers
For
subconsciously
sure.
to that unfolding. And
Yes.
and there's other, ways through different therapeutic modalities to identify those limiting beliefs and those scripts. And then what, right? I think that what you're
Mhm.
offering is a great way for people to really start to have the exercise of getting clear on what they do want,
Yes.
and to then start to work on building a new identity around that completion.
Completely.
Yeah.
And to speak to that, I am not a therapist, and I don't pretend to be, and I'm even shy away from using the term hypnotherapist, because I think that is a different perspective on delving into the individual's psychology and their thoughts. I've used the word very specifically, hypnotist. I'm not therapy. I'm not offering therapy for anyone, essentially. But and especially in California, that's a tricky word when it comes to practicing in California, because there's a certain degree of allowance that the law has with what you're describing yourself as and what you are actually doing. But there's a
Yeah, no,
lot.
I'm with you on that. I think
Yeah.
that's wise on your part, and good to clear. It's very ethical to clarify
Oh,
the
thank you. I try.
yeah, the particular offering that you have, and to be able to guide people towards, other types of therapy,
Mhm.
if that block becomes apparent, right?
And
Yeah.
I will definitely refer them to other folks if they do are if they are seeking that kind of work, then that's something I'd happily refer them to, another hypnotherapist to. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard you mention that in Chris's podcast last time, and yeah, I feel you. It's like we don't necessarily, as individuals, have all the answers. Some other people can help others, more than we can. So we have references and all that stuff, which is great, and all that stuff. And
definitely.
you dropped Eric Sonian, who seems to be an honest man, to taking people to the promised land of the like rudimentary type of hip, hypnotism. I don't want to say hypnotherapy now because you got me
Oh, it's okay.
watching the compartmentalization of things, but yeah, it's just to even label yourself. It just sucks that we have to put ourselves in these boxes, yet, we kind of have to, so others can identify what they're seeking towards, their needs and that kind of, you know what I mean? So it is what it is, right? So, yeah.
And some of that too is also linked to my own biases against the therapists, against therapy. But I'm not trying to put that on anyone else. I'm not telling them, that's how I'm defining myself more so than anything else.
Yeah. So being in the natural law community for a while and offering educational opportunities and discussion opportunities, what have you noticed are maybe some of the ways that your approach could assist people in really manifesting greater alignment in the great work?
Fully. Well, the one gentleman that I was doing, he really wanted to activate parts of himself. He wanted to activate himself to actually go out and step into the world and start interviewing people on the street.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, I remember you mentioned that in Chris's. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's a blessing to share that, and that's he actually reached out to me through Chris. Then he's a fan of the End of Evil podcast, and that's how he found me in the first place. So I'm grateful to be able to bring that to him. And yeah, I think I mentioned that a couple other places, but we can, especially in the freedom community, anyone who does want to test out these principles, test out the processes that I'm using with individuals, if your goal is to be teaching natural law or to be furthering natural law, then I am not going to charge at all. Like this, I want to put myself out there and volunteer to assist anyone with that goal in mind in order to further these thought forms. And so that's something I definitely want to do. And I am doing is offering that for free to folks, because you know what? Like, we need more people out there actually stepping into this teaching position, actually bringing these thoughts to others, and actually engaging in the highest degree possible, right? Another woman that I reached out that I was working with, Marcella, I invited, she's in one of the groups now because she reached out to me through email, and I invited her as well. And she has the intention that we used with her was that she wanted to be teaching natural law, and she wanted to be building structures and be actually engaging on that level. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I think that's exactly the highest vision that I can be unfolding for my hypnosis, is to help activate others. I think that's going to be the greatest help that I can be possibly offering to humanity at this present moment of this critical junction. So it's really good. I also even going to Benny Wells, the Sovereign Secrets group, I helped Benny Wells, and his goal was to have increased creativity. And he told me that later that he wrote, like, he's just he's just writing script after script after script after various things of works. And after our session, he wanted increased creativity, and that is exactly what the outcome was for him, where he was actually able to go and be developing these thoughts and these ideas in the highest way possible. So it's awesome. So once again, anyone who wants a free session and who wants to teach natural law in regards to natural law, hit me up. Like, please reach out. My website, empowerhypnosis.app. I'm happy to do a session with you, no charge. If you're more
Wow.
natural law oriented.
I think I'm gonna hit you up for a session. Sorry, Leslie, real quick, because to be honest, learning from Oksana and that conversation we had, like it, yeah, like as I mentioned in the beginning, it, myself included, underestimated the power of hypnosis, hypnotherapy, whatever people want to call it, right?
Yes.
And how it can further one's deeper aspects of shadow work and that kind of stuff. So people on this path work, I highly recommend this. Giving it a shot. What do you have to lose, right?
They're your words. Like, I'm not putting my own interpretation on this. There's no spin here. This is you. This is what you want.
Yeah. I think that doing the aspect of great work that is in teaching natural law is challenging people's fear of like public speaking and
Mm,
embarrassment
yeah.
of being ridiculed. You know, many of us drawn to this have been in sort of an outsider status or have been bullied, or there's all sorts of like woundings around our voice, and
So
it
true.
holds people back with self-doubt around, you know, technology or public speaking.
Creative blockages, you know.
Yeah, lots of
Mhm.
creative blocks. And I think that your approach here is really very useful to helping people overcome these types of challenges, to be able to identify, you know, that there's a fear, there's a block, and that then through sort of identifying almost like the opposite, that thing that you want to do, and then the quality internally that it will take to fulfill it, right? And be able to just deepen in this vision of yourself achieving. I think that's very powerful. And as a therapist, like a more traditional
Yeah.
psychotherapist, I
Yeah. No shade, no
no
shade,
offense
Leslie.
taken. I've trained and practiced EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and part of this training involved what we call installing mental resources. It's an installation using eye movements or bilateral stimulation, but it's, to me, seems to have a similarity to this idea of hypnosis, but
Yes.
it's different. But the sometimes, you know, you can clear out the traumas and metabolize that, but then you're left with like, then what am I going to become? Who am I? Like,
Yeah.
how do I integrate this self-awareness into a vision for the future? And so it is this process of taking a quality or a vision of self, and then really spending time working with that mind um, to own it really and receive it. And there is something physiological happening in that process. It's building new neural networks.
Yes.
It's strengthening. I don't know if you want to
That's it.
share a little bit more about that.
Perfect. Yeah. And to speak to that directly, the method that I use with the clients is that we use just a direct drive form of hypnosis, which is just repeating that sentence over and over, imagining it to be true as many details as we can, as many angles as we can.
108 times, right?
108 times, correct. Ding, ding, ding. The
I
magic
remember that
number,
shit.
as I understand.
Yeah.
And that's there's a lot of cultural implications for that number, depending on where you're at or where you're standing, because that is a number that's in a lot of Eastern spirituality traditions that you find. And mala beads are 108 beads, right? Or various other ways of counting. And so that's kind of the method that I honed for myself, though, is when using 108 repetitions, the process that I use to count to there is specifically with a deck of cards, which is kind of an Americanized idea, right? And so a deck of cards has 52 plus the two jokers, 54 cards. And we use the cards actually to count the repetitions to make sure that we get it as deeply into our consciousness as we can. We go through a deck of cards twice. So each time you put down a card, you repeat it to yourself, you imagine it to be true, and then you move on to the next card. And you're just doing this over and over to build these neural structures and neural pathways in order to create that meaningful change that you're seeking. So yeah, just the amount, and it takes, going that process, it's not necessarily a quick one either. You're going time and time again, 108 times. That's not a short amount of repetitions, but that's what I've been doing with clients. It's been very helpful. It can get a little bit dragging at times, but that's okay. Like, that's part of it.
I mean, it's just like you're going to a gym, right? You're going to do how many sets of how many reps to build
Reps.
up muscle,
Yes,
whatever. You're doing it on the mental plane and emotional planes and all that, all the
completely.
things, that shit.
And what I noticed and appreciated in how you did it is that you would shift up the language around the same affirmation.
Yes.
so that there was a flexibility that was established, rather than just repeating the same sentence over and over.
Yeah.
You were really getting to the concept and
Engaging with them exactly what they wanted to see, the change they wanted to see, and asking people to get really specific with what they're imagining, and making sure I'm reminding individuals like imagine how that feels. Then imagine how that looks, imagine how that sounds, like as many details as we can pull in different aspects. And that's been a really powerful part of the process. And so
Yes, no, you're right on. It's like in the installation of psychological resources, right?
Mhm.
Through what I've been trained professionally, the
Yes.
idea is to cultivate the sensory experience, right? To build that into your mind as much as you can as you're visualizing yourself in
Yeah.
this state that you want to be. So the sensory, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, taste, touch, all of that. And the more senses that are engaged in the present moment as you're doing this repetition and this visualization, the deeper the roots get planted in your nervous system, I think, and in your self-identity. It's very powerful.
Truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love hearing all this technical jargon, like direct drive and
Yeah.
and other things. Could you share just more like about the techniques, I guess, and
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've pulled various techniques from so many different sources, from so many different places. I've been reading a lot of old hypnosis books. That's one of the places. A lot of technical ones, and Ericksonian hypnosis, and learning about all these various things. And the concept known as direct drive, I learned that word very specifically from a buddy in Ireland who's a professional hypnotist, and he's kind of guided me a lot for a decent amount of time with the work that he's done, because he's helping people with their end of life care. And not even end of life care, people who were seemingly towards the end of their life, but who after the sessions they were able to kind of pull themselves out and become a much better version of what they were intending, right? So elderly folk care, I should say, I guess. And to clarify, Leslie, I didn't mean to offend you by casting shade on therapists.
no worry.
No shade, no shade for you. You're a wonderful person with a great position.
I'm a very so Joe Dispenza, has become popular with this idea of visualizing and the state rewriting basically the
Mhm.
script of your identity and who you are. And is there a little bit of influence or anything similar between what you're doing and some of his work?
I am unfamiliar with his
Oh,
work,
okay.
so I do not know. I mean, it very may well be, but as
Yeah.
far as I can understand, like, there's probably there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new that I'm doing here. Like,
Yeah.
the newest aspect of what I've been teaching, the most unique aspect, is to use a deck of cards. Like, that's which is why I'm okay with that. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's
There's a lot of visualizations,
Mhm.
in his work and others, creative
Nice.
visualization. And so what makes this a little different than just doing a guided visualization, for example?
Well, because I would say it's what makes it a little different is the card aspect, and then also it's client driven. This is completely client decided, determined, right? There's no interpretation on my part. It's not me telling people what to think, or it's not them saying like, "Oh, this is the outcome I want." It's like, no, we're honing in very clearly. We're making this as clear as humanly possible. And so a lot of the conversation that I have with the clients beforehand, of actually deciding what the change is that they want for themselves, and what that looks like, and what it feels like, and as many aspects. So that's kind of what I see as one of the more unique aspects, right? Because a lot of people, they have this idea of hypnosis as like this that's going to come in, he's going to tell you how to think, he's going to tell you what to do, and I have no interest in telling anybody how to live.
What is this? It's like MK Ultra. What the hell, man? You ever gotten that?
right?
The hell?
Oh, and that's an aspect. Something else I learned, a hypnotic technique, right? For creating meaningful changes if we're stuck in a pattern, right? And specifically, this pattern is in if you're stuck in a certain thought pattern, right? Or maybe you have even a song stuck in your head, something simple, even it doesn't matter. If you can actually create the changes using a hypnotic technique and just cancel them out, right? So that's something I've talked about with others, is if they have a song stuck in their head, they can just, every time they hear it start to play in their mind, just give yourself the command, cancel, cancel, cancel. And you could just literally phase shift it out just by canceling it over and over again in order to create the change you want to see in yourself manifest. It's just being mindful enough to actually apply the techniques. And that is that is the hypnotist dilemma many times, you could say, right?
Yeah, that's a technique I gotta focus in on a little bit more, because sometimes when you're working in public spaces, you're going to be
Yeah.
subjected to all this, the negative side of the hypnotic, melodic, whatever the hell, insane type of music that just gets stuck in
my
your head,
God.
even listening to 30 seconds of it. So there's aspects that the manipulative side of things that use those aspects to play on our conscious, subconscious, unconscious mind fields, right?
Completely true. Yes. And I think an example of that happened to me recently, right? Or not recently, but relatively, with that freaking Beyonce song. Like, I had that thought occurring over and over. This ain't Texas. It's like I had to cancel that one out, because you know what? Like, they use techniques very specifically to put those thoughts in our mind, and music is one of the main aspects. And so that's one of the things that I like to do during my sessions with individuals, is to play music in the background of solfeggio frequencies. And solfeggio frequencies 432, or what are the other ones? There's
528,
528. Thank you.
714. Yeah.
You're locked and loaded, Derek. You know what's up.
Yeah. Cheers. I got a
But
couple of playlists on my channel, Awakening Mind, if anyone's interested.
got it. Yeah.
I'll just, in addition to music, I think that sometimes, there's negative people that have negative messages that infiltrate and can, get under our skin even, and be repeated or a little obsessive. I can catch myself being a little obsessive with something that I don't want to be focused on. And I think that this is a really great method, right, to shift focus, right, away from the negative thoughts into the positive.
Yes. Completely.
Kind of like how your funnel 4 presentation went.
Yeah.
About music
Stephanie
and
had her
stuff, right?
Yeah.
power of music. That was beautiful.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Got that, you're right on.
But when we're doing the one great work, or just trying to grow and develop individually, we're going to hit like different roadblocks and detours and challenges. And so if we're aware of these things and noticing that our thoughts are getting hijacked, right, coming into this idea of canceling and then redirecting. Because if
Yes.
you're going to cancel something out, what are you going to fill that space with?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful perspective,
Yeah.
important though. Crucial.
Yeah. So any other aspects about the hypnosis itself, or anything around the mind that you would like to add?
Great question. I think that just that it's important to be aware of these tools that are being wielded against us, right? Because hypnosis can be used as a weapon. It can be used as a scalpel to cut out what we don't want. It can be used to put in thoughts that are not serving us. It's just about being conscious about when it's actually happening, you know? seeing the water that you're swimming through, because we're all steeped in hypnotic thoughts all the time, and recognizing that, like, okay, that is a message that they're trying to put into my mind, and they're trying to convince me of something. There's another agenda here at play, and it's occurring in all forms of media, all forms of music at all times. And it's can be for the positive, I guess, in many aspects, but also it's not used for the positive necessarily. So just about being conscious of, what's actually going in, and to understand that there's greater ramifications to these things that we may be seeing, we may be perceiving as harmless to our subconscious mind, but actually are creating more effects. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that as we, recognize and become more conscious of the programming, we can
Yes.
start to ask ourselves, like, who am I? Who am I really? And who do I want to be? What is the me that I want to step into, to sculpt, right? That's going to align me with my values, my principles, the calling to do something bigger than myself. However, a lot of us are being called to this, and I think this that you're offering is part of is a method, right, to help encourage people to really ask the question: who do I want to be? Who do I need to be in order to do this that I want to do? What are the muscles that I need to build? Those thought muscles, those identity muscles, and then to step in with the support, of some of and the guidance that you offer to really help build those things internally.
Completely. And also on my website, for those who are interested in just utilizing these tools personally themselves without even me, like, I don't necessarily need to be there. I have written and offer a self-hypnosis guide as well. And that's where a lot of this process was initially distilled, initially came into form, was through the self-hypnosis writings that I was doing. And so on my website, I offer a free self-hypnosis guide for anyone who wants to get it sent directly to their email. I was going to say one other thing. I'll come back around. I'll remember it.
Yeah, of course you will. And maybe I might stimulate something. And stemming from what Leslie was talking about. And,
Yes.
this has been on my mind for years. And you mentioned it a couple times in Chris's podcast and this and that. And I'm going to challenge you on this because I don't necessarily agree
Okay.
to the notion, and it's not you, but, countless amounts of people that say this. And it's not a bad, I don't hold it against anyone, but and I understand, like, people are at, whatever level of consciousness they are at, they're operating from that level.
Yeah.
It's to, throw out a blanket statement like, oh, like, everyone's doing the best that they can at the moment. I don't buy into that, because I'm looking at myself like, hey, Derek, you can do better right now. You're sitting on the couch sometimes, you're watching a video that's not really congruent with what you could be doing better, or that kind of stuff. So I look at myself in reflection to that statement and refute it, even within myself, type of thing. And I'm not being hard on myself, and I see objectively around people, it's like, wow, these people could do better in life, type of thing. Like,
here's my question then: why aren't you doing better?
Yeah.
If there's something else that you can be conceiving, like, what is it that's holding you back? And that is the point that I'm getting at, is that there are things that are holding us back, and if we could be doing better, we would be doing better, but we are being held back by something at that present moment. So it's not to say that, like, you don't have the capability of doing better, because you do, but just not at this present time, in this place where you're currently at. Like, we're all doing the best we can. And I think that, for me at least, that's something that rings true. And you don't have to agree with me. It's okay. Like, if you, I'm not, that's not the hill I'm going to die on, but
Neither am I, brother. Yeah, it's all good, man. I just
Yeah,
want to get perspective of anything else.
yeah,
it's like there's conscious and unconscious, right?
Yeah.
And consciously, for the level of consciousness, people are making effort and trying. And I think that's what you could call, the best they can given that level of consciousness. However, we
Yes.
can all, through expanding and awakening our consciousness, step into something better, right?
Yes.
But there are people who, clearly who are choosing to do very malevolent things, and they're maybe they're putting their ambition in the wrong, hurtful path. But I think that, I've been thinking, one of the questions that I've been thinking a lot about for myself is like, what's driving me? What is driving me to feel the need to always be doing better, even? And what does that look like? And is there a cost? So I know that when I did my talk with you, I was really
Yeah.
I added a piece about flow and flowing,
Mhm.
right, with confidence, clarity, and focus, so that my drive could be more of a easeful flow and not an effortful drive, right? So I think that we can look at the quality in which we're growing, or the quality around which we're doing our best, and that there's
Yes.
always ways to enhance our lives, and how we're doing this work.
And I think that a word that you used specifically there kind of is important to that. And I think you used it in the correct manner as well. The idea of trying, right? This
Mm.
idea of trying to do something, because in the word trying is the assumption that you didn't actually do it. Like, I tried to do this, but that doesn't mean you did it. If you tried something, that means that you put an attempt in, but it didn't happen as you intended. And that's okay. That's an important part of the process, because failure is part of the process as well. So there's no shame in trying. It's a good thing to try, just as it's a good thing to fail, because that means that you're doing something. And so I think that, that is a word that we can use there, that might be better suited depending on which perspective we're going through. But also, to speak to that though, Leslie, is that we all these thoughts are coming from these factors that are essentially outside our control. I mean, I know that I am steeped in hypnotic thoughts from a child that do educate me, and that's okay. That's okay that I have these thought forms that weren't necessarily instilled by me. But I think principle is the most important aspect of it. As long as we're acting with principles first, that's the most crucial element to this. And if we have a deeper understanding of our principles, then we have a deeper understanding of ourselves. Everything that's backloaded onto us from our childhood and from television and from movies and everything that happened in our life, all of these are building us in our current state, because I know that I'm very much ensconced in the media matrix, this millennial perspective of like, okay, yeah, I'm for sure like I'm hypnotized by the countless hours of media that I've watched. And you know what? It's okay. I don't need to be, no one is perfect. No one is clean as the driven snow. No one is completely without any sort of external influences. We are doing the best we can. And to tie it back around to that.
Yeah, so self-compassion, some self-forgiveness is really
Yes.
essential on this journey, right? To not let a perfectionist part just take over, and
Yeah.
because ultimately that's self-negating, right? And and I like what you're pinpointing here around the use of language and the importance of language, because I imagine that the language that you're using during these hypnotic sessions is important, right? And you're not
Very
just
much.
saying, I'm trying. Maybe it's more like, I'm doing, right?
Yes.
My
Completely.
life is. So can you just expand on the importance of that language, and how it affects the subconscious mind?
Yes. We're teaching ourselves all the time with every word we speak. And I think when I'm working with clients, there's a word in particular that I always like to expand upon and that I always like to hone in on, and that is the word success. What is success? And I think Earl Nightingale's definition of success is the most important one that I've come across. And that is to say, success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. And under that definition of success, success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. You can become a success the minute you decide. As the minute that you have a worthy goal in mind and that you make the decision to move towards that goal, you are acting with success. Success is not reaching the top of the mountain. It's not saying that like, oh, I'm going to make this. It's like, no, like you're the woman who's has a family, she's a success, and who's moving towards that vision for herself, right? It's whatever vision of success that you have in mind personally, but it's a process. It's not an end goal. It's not saying that you're done like being a success as soon as you reach this summit, right? Because there's always another summit. That's the thing.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioned. Sorry to cut you off if I did.
Please, no, you're good.
Okay, yeah, because yeah, I suggest anyone listening to watch the podcast that Chris Jensen did with Brendan on End Evil podcast, because you speak about that quite a bit. Him and you had some great back and forth, so it was really cool. The reason why I brought it out, I wanted to segue into the realm of success and taking steps towards people's goals, and once they figure out their life's purpose, or finding some kind of significant purpose of what they're kind of adept or inclined to step into, stepping in those right directions. Yeah, they might be baby steps, of course, in the beginning, right? But once they get their bearings up, get that more kinetic energy, momentum towards that larger end goal. I wanted to ask you, because and I was kind of laughing to myself earlier, thinking about in the back of my mind as well, because I played soccer for 20 years and this and that. And hey, like sometimes you're at the top of your game, sometimes you have a shitty game. I'm not playing at my best right now. So am I doing my best right now, kind of thing? And also, like, I'm sure, because professional sports athletes have gone to hypnotherapists to kind of like remove some blockages and that kind of stuff. Have you had interactions with any athletes or anything like that, or can you just speak upon what I just mentioned? If not,
I have not had any I've not worked with any professional athletes, but I'm totally open to it. It's not outside what I feel capable of helping people step into. That being said, yeah, there's an enormous amount of pressure that goes into those kind of situations, and that's not something I have personal experience with either. I'm not an athlete. I'm not on that level. But it's a beautiful thing that you can use in order to realize your highest vision for yourself. And so, but to be honest, I'm not necessarily, that's not my wheelhouse, so to speak.
fair enough, brother. No worries. What's good, Leslie?
But I just wouldn't see any reason why your technique wouldn't work with anyone from any particular area that they're wanting to grow, right? Is if you have a clear vision and then with your help, establish the rhetoric, the language around it.
Yeah.
Then it's the technique. I mean, I don't think you have to have experience in the field of which someone's growing. It's because it's this process, like you said, it's self-directed.
Mm-hmm.
And you're encouraging the individual to identify their vision, their goal. You're helping to, massage the language. You're receiving clarity around what that looks, feels like, and then guiding them through that process. So the work is really done within your own head.
Amen.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. Yeah, I think you're more humble than need be.
Perhaps.
Yeah, and I really encourage people to check out your offer, but also offer a donation and really show reciprocal value for what you offer. And I think that I could look at it that the work that we did did plant a seed in me that I revisit. And I think for me, it could also lead to other steps to come back and continue to build.
Yeah.
So how do you view this idea of like a one and done versus sort of a process of building?
Definitely. Yes. Cultivating the seed, right? Planting that seed and cultivating it. And I think that coming back to these thoughts over and over just strengthens them. And so I recommend probably 5 sessions. I would say is the correct number to in order to get a real deep change to happen in any individual. The more you can go and repeat these processes, the more you can repeat this thought, the stronger it becomes in you, right? Building those neural pathways in the best way possible. And so definitely
Yeah.
repetition helps, assuredly. It helps enormously.
Yes, and to take this work, from this planting the seed to then maybe adding it into your own meditation, or morning practice, and
Mhm.
of repeating those affirmations. And then I could see, like, I only did it once and I felt an effect. So I can imagine if I did it 5 times with you, plus my own reinforcement, that could be very, very powerful.
Compounding.
Yeah,
Mm.
I love
Yeah,
it.
my girlfriend, with their hypnotherapy sessions and her clientele, yeah, it's usually not a one-off. They'll come back
No.
for a couple more this night, because it's just there's so much to unravel and unveil within someone's deep recessed memories, subconscious, unconscious, issues going on in there. There's a lot going on in there, like so. Yeah, think about it.
No, that's for sure. That's part of what I talk with clients and but I think because of the nature of the process that I've kind of developed, like it's so much repetition that some people it just takes the one and they can make that change. They can step into that vision. It's like the woman who I helped with the cocaine addiction. She was able to leave it behind after, and I mean she was already ready to leave it behind, but that's her personal choice, and I just helped kick it off essentially. But it's repetition. That's what helps the most. It really does.
So you are doing the great work, Brendan, with this
Thank you.
offering. This is part of it, and I very much appreciate,
Thank
um,
you.
that you're bringing to the freedom world this particular gift. I think
Means a lot to
it's
me.
very
It
needed. So yeah, thank you. So I think we are at a
Yeah,
point we can close up. Any
we are.
final words? And
I
oh,
have
go
one
ahead,
more.
Derek.
I have one more question because
Please.
I've been intrigued. Obviously I've been taking notes. Listening to you and Chris talking. So don't worry
Righteous.
about it. Or maybe you should. No, just kidding.
No.
uh, you guys mentioned, and I liked how Chris was riffing off of some of his life experiences and stuff, and how he was coming into his awakening process, and how he was able to flip the script on some of his mental, the negative mental programmings,
Yes.
and how he would be using I forget what book he referenced, but he was talking about triggers, like positive triggers. And
Yeah.
then, like, he was talking about brushing his teeth and doing squats, like that little 2 minute
Oh,
session, and there you go, type of thing. That's a cool physical lesson. And I wanted to get your take on just the aspects of positive versus negative triggers, because we hear that in pop psychology all the time, all day long. Oh, this person's triggered and this and that. Yet there are things that we can recall to like trigger certain things that are going to be positive affirmations or reinforcements or benefits for us, or just reminders and that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, please.
The way I've used that idea of triggers, I prefer the term anchor. And I think that term comes from Richard Bandler, as I understand, and that's kind of where I learned that thought is. And so when I'm working with clients, in this, I kind of elucidated it more in some of my writings and some of my personal guide about how to do this by yourself, and the idea of creating an anchor, a physical anchor that can link these thoughts to your mental state. A physical gesture to the mental state. And I think that's a really powerful tool. So that way you can use the whatever anchor you've decided for yourself, whatever gesture or whatever, in order to pull out of the ether, out of your consciousness, this state that you want to inhabit. And so you can actually activate it on the go, on the fly, And so there's a lot of different aspects to using anchors. You know, you can have physical anchors, verbal anchors, or whatever. You know, a lot of hypnotists use anchors in order to help people, or I think a lot of people use the term triggers though to get into a deep hypnotic state, right? And so that's one of the methods that hypnotists like to use in order to bring out this thought anytime they need to do so, so they can create that sort of hypnotic state. But that's not what I'm using anchors for. I'm using anchors to link it to a vision of their success, and so that they can actually step into that vision more easily when they're using it. So
I love that response, and because you know, people can get easily trapped within, you know, semantics, right? And like thinking
yes.
about the polarity of the word trigger in how it's so overly abundantly used, you know, with, you know, shadow work or people getting triggered from, you know, the negative reaction, the trauma, and yada yada, triviality, whatever the fuck. And, you know, to kind of throw in the mix of like the positive triggers, you know, folks can be like, what is that? But if they hear the word, oh, these anchors, that
Mhm.
would be a much more positive reinforcing reference, I feel.
I dig it.
I
Yeah.
love the image of if you're anchored, you know, you're
Yeah.
anchored and the triggers come, you don't fly off the
No.
handle, you know, you call upon your anchor to keep you grounded. And this idea of having, you know, whether it's like a stone in your pocket, you know,
Mhm.
or like you said, a hand
Physical,
gesture or
yeah.
something that is we create, we have nobody, it's not coming from the outside. It's something we're creating, cultivating, and using to empower ourselves and to choose our path, our responses. And it goes
Yes.
back to that self-responsibility. And I love that self-determining quality.
And I just got to say, on behalf of Dissolving the Divide, we're not trigger happy. We just want to, you know, not get caught up in the polarities of things, you know. Anyways,
Yeah, I love it. So, Brendan, where do people find your work and find you to reach out to get your services?
You can find me at my website, empowerhypnosis.app, empowerhypnosis.app, empowerhypnosis.app.
thrice great. Yeah, man.
Excellent. And if people are in the natural law community or want to become more familiar with natural law, how do they find your chat?
Ooh, that is a great question. I probably should have that locked and loaded. You know, the natural law discussion group, I've been running that on Telegram for probably about 4 or 5 years now. 4 years, I think 2000, 2000, that's old fashioned. But 2021, I think I started it. And so it's been going for a while, and I've been attempting to hold weekly meetings every Tuesday night, do a live chat where I invite anyone to come discuss natural law, and we talk about all the different aspects of it and everything that we can kind of pull out of this mishmash of knowledge that we all bring to the table, because there's a lot there, you know, and there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of strategies, and we'll get there. We're on the path, you know. I
Yeah,
think
there's a lot there. I'm usually there a little bit
Eric's there.
after, you know, I show up late because, you know, we have the one Great Book Warriors with Chris, you know, at the same time, conflicting schedules, but you kind of shifted
Yeah,
a little
oh,
bit
good.
ahead of
I'll,
time.
I'll,
And yeah, appreciate it.
I think I'll make a change to the timing a little bit. I'll go a half hour later.
Ooh, why not?
And I just want to remind everyone who's on this path of Nightingale's definition, right, of
Mm-hmm.
success, right? The success of realization of a worthy goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's really important for all of us on this, you know, who are embodying a mission of whether it's, you know, in teaching natural law or helping people work on their healing, whatever aspect we're working on here, that we are, as if we are stepping forward on this path, that is part of the success, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
you're already a success.
Mhm. Yeah. So thank you, Brendan, for taking your time and joining us. Really important stuff. And, you know, appreciate everything you shared today.
It was great. Thank you so much for hosting. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are doing the work, and it's all awesome. We're gonna get there.
Yeah.
All right.
Likewise, brother.
you.
Appreciate
We're
you
winning.
and what you're doing, man. Yeah, keep it up. Keep it up.
Yeah. All
Stuff.
right.
All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day then, eh?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
take care.
everybody for watching.
Take care.
Ciao.